Start recording. All right, recording is started. All right. All right. Inches back. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, something weird happened with my headset.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
That's WebXR for you. So, which is a good segue into VARTISTE. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out. If you're here, I'm guessing you know at least a little bit about what VARTISTE is. It's a virtual reality WebXR app that I've been building for, I guess, a few years now. I think you can see inside the interface here. You're kind of getting the spectator view in my hands. So this is VARTISTE. It's pretty much a little web app for building things in VR, mostly geared towards texturing and materials and 3D model editing. The idea is it's a quick and dirty tool to do lots of things. Probably you'll get some good results if you're going for medium quality kinds of stuff. If you're trying to do like AAA game development or Pixar movies, VARTISTE isn't the tool. But I think based on the folks that are here, I think it's a good tool for a lot of what you guys are interested in. If you're trying to get some props set up for a show, or if you're trying to get some assets for a hub scene or for a game that you're making without a ton of effort, I think VARTISTE could be a pretty helpful tool for you. So that's VARTISTE. To get started, I think based on some of the feedback I got, it might be helpful to go over just a little bit of theory before we go ahead and get started. So if you guys will all follow me over to these diagrams over here. We'll start with this one all the way on the right. Just a quick overview of 3D materials as they're commonly used in a lot of different 3D engines these days. You have a 3D model, so that's this humanoid figure right here. 3D model determines the geometry, so where the points are in 3D space, and then turning that model into something that you see requires a material. That determines kind of how theoretically light bounces off the model and gets shown onto the camera or your eyes eventually. A lot of modern 3D engines use what's called Pbr Rendering, which is physically based rendering. That's where you have different material channels that tell in kind of a generalized way how light interacts with the object. Kind of the most important channels are the just base color channel in 3JS, which is what VARTISTE is built in. That's just the map or source channel. Then there's the normal channel, or the normal map is the texture that tells you what the values of the normal channel is. That's a vector that describes kind of how light, the direction that light should bounce off of the surface at each kind of pixel on that map. And there's the metalness channel, which tells you how metally kind of a part of the model is. And then there's the roughness channel, which tells you how rough or smooth something is. If you come look over here, you can see that this guy's got some parts that are really metally, some parts that are kind of smooth but not metally, some parts that are kind of rough, all on this one object. And the way we do that is with these maps. So these maps are basically just images you can see behind this guy, there's all these different images. And the images, each pixel describes one of these values for a particular location. The way we turn 2D images onto this 3D shape is with what's called UV mapping. So that gets us to this next guy over here. A UV map is basically just each point in 3D space has encoded into a corresponding position in 2D space. So you can see this pumpkin guy, each individual 3D vertex or point in 3D space has a corresponding 2D position on the plane. The way you make these things is really dependent on what you're trying to do. There's no canonical UV map for any given 3D model. You go through a process called UV unwrapping, where you take the 3D points and you assign them a place in 2D space. So I've already done that for this guy here, and you can see how like the hands go to this position and they kind of get unwrapped and flattened, and the pants go down here and the head goes up here. But again, there's many different ways that you could unwrap this same model and get different positions for all of these things. In order for VARTISTE to operate, it uses these UV coordinates, these UV maps, to turn the things that you're drawing and put it into 3D things and put it onto the model. So having good UV maps for your model is pretty important to having VARTISTE operate smoothly. Although there's lots of tricks that you can get around, even if you're starting from a completely unwrapped model or a model that hasn't been unwrapped terribly well. So some of that we'll get into when we talk about a little bit more about the tools. That was a pretty quick overview. I'm not quite sure where everyone is coming from in terms of 3D background here, so I'll pause if anybody has any questions about this. 3D in general. Oh, feeling good?
Hey, Zach, this is Sage. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but what unwrap process are you using? Are you doing like cube projection unwrapping or manual unwrapping with seams?
Yeah, so good question. It really depends on the model. So for me, so we'll get into some of the tools that are available in VARTISTE in just a minute here. For me, it really depends on what I'm trying to do and how quickly I'm trying to do it. If I'm just doodling, what I'll usually do is just doodle in 3D, either use VARTISTE, which has its own built-in UV unwrap scheme for the 3D objects that it has built into it, or if I'm doing something doodling in like Tilt Brush, say, or Gravity Sketch, those tools don't always do a great job giving you a nice clean UV map. But if I'm just doodling, doing something quick, what I'll do is I'll just drag and drop them into VARTISTE and use the some of these UV unwrap shapes, which we'll get into when we get into the tools. That'll give me a quick and dirty UV map. It'll let me assign materials to the thing. It'll let me draw on it. It won't be perfect. There will be messes and there will be glitches. But if I'm just going quick, it's acceptable. If I'm doing something that I want to be really careful about and I'm using another tool to generate the 3D model, I'll probably take it into Blender and do the UV unwrap there. I'll go through and mark seams by hand and use the probably some of the automatic unwrap tools there. Again, depends on the level of effort that I'm going for a particular model.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So think this is a good segue to get into VARTISTE itself. So, just before we get into it, I'll give a quick overview. Based on the details from the Discord server, it seems like people are really interested in getting things in and out of VARTISTE, doing some nitty-gritty with the UV maps and content creation, the 3D content creation, which makes sense for especially all you on-board folks out here. Thanks for coming out. I think this will be good for some props and stuff like that. So go over import real quick. I've also asked Yinch to give some of his expertise here. He's been using VARTISTE to some really impressive effects on the Quest. So he'll go over how he does import from the Quest. I'll go over PC. Then we'll go over some of the UV unwrapping tools and some of the material tools and the 3D tools. Then we'll talk about export and then go over questions and anything that needs a deeper dive. Any point, feel free to stop me, ask questions, just shout it out. I can hear you in VARTISTE. I can kind of see you sometimes too. So yeah. So let's get started with import then. All right. So right now you can see VARTISTE again. You can also see yourselves because I've got hubs projected into the view so I can see you. If you've never used VARTISTE before, just some quick terminology. This down here is the quick menu shelf. It's got some of the basic high-level tools. You've got your brushes over here, your color picker over here. This is the canvas, and over here is your layers. So for bringing things into VARTISTE, you've got some options. You've got some configuration that you can do. The main hub for bringing things in is if you go here to projects and then you click load. This gives you your load shelf. If you click this button, if you're on PC or if you're not in an immersive session on the Quest, it'll give you a file browser, and then you can bring in any kind of file that VARTISTE supports. You can open a URL with some caveats. VARTISTE runs just in the browser. It doesn't have any kind of server infrastructure behind it, so loading files from a URL is subject to CORS restrictions. So if you're loading files from a server, make sure that you've configured it correctly with to allow VARTISTE CORS access. You've got some options down here for import. We'll go over them in a little bit. The most important one really is this reference object import. If you click it, you'll import things as references. If not, you'll import them as drawable, either layers or meshes. So just to demonstrate that, I've got some. Let's see. We'll start with some meshes from Polyhaven. If you don't know about it, Polyhaven is a great CC0 resource. They've got HDRI files, they've got textures, and they've got a whole bunch of really nice, high-quality 3D models. So let's see. Share my desktop here. I think this should...
Zach.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mouse clicked your screen and it's gone small in the stage. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Let's see. All right, there we go. Now you've got this nice. You can all see the recursive hubs inside of hubs inside of hubs. Okay, hope so. All right, the wrong window. The easiest way on the PC to bring things into VARTISTE is to drag and drop them. That's what I do all the time. It's pretty handy. So I've got my VARTISTE window over here. I've got File Explorer over here, and I've got the zip files that I downloaded from Polyhaven. VARTISTE can open zip files. It can import GLB files, GLTF files. It can import FBX files, OBJ files, JPEGs, PNGs, a ton of different files. So let's see what. So with a headset, you're going to have to be a little bit more creative. Yinch will talk about headsets and standalone headsets in just a second. If you're doing it through AirLink or Oculus Link or a tethered headset, I'm using the Reverb G2, then you just lift up your headset and then you've got your desktop there, so you can drag and drop onto the Chrome window. Again, for mobile VR, Yinch will get into that in just a second. But for desktop, easiest way to do it, just drag and drop right there. And there it goes, loads, and now I've got the vase. Press the Y button and it clears out the UI for you, so it's a little bit easier to see. Here's the vase. By default, it imports as something you can pick up the pencil and start drawing on, just like that. Smiley face, pretty handy. Yep. So you can see over here, it's imported all of the different material maps as layers. So you could, if you wanted to, go in here and manually edit the metalness map. So let's say you don't like a very metal vase, you can just put it down. Black is 0 in these maps, in the map scheme, so no metalness. There you go. Or full metalness, just like that. So that's importing as a drawable. If you don't want to import as something you can draw, let's say you've got a mesh that you want to use as a reference. You've got a 3D scan of like a model if you're doing figure drawing or something like that. Or you want to use it for some of the other 3D tools without drawing on it. You make sure import as reference object is checked. So now I've got that checked. It's green. Go back here and drag and drop. And now I've got this katana. You can see when I hover over it, it gets this frame with these buttons on top that give me some options for things to do with it, and I cannot draw on it. It preserves its original material. I can't draw on it, but now it's a reference object, so I can still move it around, place it somewhere. I can use the B button here to clone it, just like that. It's really handy. Now my vase guy, my happy vase man, now has some weaponry. Oh dear. So there's really 3 kinds of 3D objects in VARTISTE. There's drawable meshes, these things that you can draw on. There's reference objects, these kind of whole things here, which you can import as kind of their own little scenes. And there's shapes. Can anyone else hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah? Okay. Sorry, Sage. I think you've lost
That was
audio.
me. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so there's 3 kinds of things. Drawable meshes, reference objects, and then there's shapes. So you can turn a reference object into a shape by using this decompose to shape tool. Shapes are just kind of, if you think of it in terms of 3JS, they're individual meshes or Blender individual meshes. You can edit the vertices, which I can't do right now because I'm streaming everything, and now it just slowed to a crawl. But there you go. So you can edit the mesh just like that. So those are shapes. Yeah, so that's this import as reference object feature. This applies to things that you drag and drop. It applies to things that you open with the browse for file, or it applies to things that you open from a URL. One other way to get things into VARTISTE is you can use these extras, which are just, oh dear, something's gone wrong there, which are just pre-made packs of things that I put together. So some models like these rocks that I've downloaded from Polyhaven and pre-packaged for you here. So just to, again, to demonstrate the difference between a reference object and a shape. So these rocks all together are the reference object. If I decompose them, now each individual rock is a shape. So just FYI. Let's see. So some of the oops, wrong. Some of the oops. Some of the other options for importing. Replace mesh on import. If you don't check this and you import a drawable mesh, it will get added to whatever's already there. It will probably cause you headaches unless you're intentionally doing it, because now you can see that it's taken over the material that was already there from the base. Probably not what you want. Auto scale automatically scales and centers it. If you're working with a bunch of different meshes and objects that you want to have all in the same space, you can turn it off and it'll just take whatever coordinates and scaling and everything you exported it with from whatever program you exported it in. Import material, if you uncheck this, you won't get these maps by default. Combine import materials is pretty handy. If you've got a GLB file, for instance, with multiple meshes with multiple different materials, they'll all get smushed into a single material. Each different material will get its own little square, and they'll all be joined into one. This is because of the way that VARTISTE works. It can only handle one drawable material at a time. It's a big limitation, but it's kind of the way it is, at least until I change it. I'm not going to give you a demo of that right just yet because I'll have to refresh to get rid of all this stuff and lose the setup here. But maybe if we have time later, I can show you some of that. Post-process imported mesh just gives some extra cleanup. If you're having trouble importing your mesh, try toggling it off, see if it helps. I honestly don't remember all of the things that it does. So that's a really quick rundown of importing. Right, so if you import something and you want to scale it up, it's really easy. You might mean different things by scale, and I'll talk about both of them. So to scale up the mesh, if you want to be more precise on where you're drawing, for instance, you just grab it with the grip button and go right on the joystick, and that scales it. You can scale left to go down, down pulls it in, forward pushes it out, so you can make it really big. Notice the brush size scales with the mesh, so if you want to make the brush smaller, you just point at the mesh and go down. Now you can grab your pencil and get, well, I need to be on the top layer here to see it. Now you can get really precise. The other thing that you might be wondering about is the resolution. So if you want to change the resolution, you go down here to the project resolution. So that, again, that's quick menu, project settings, and then down here you've got the width and the height, or there's some quick standard sizes. So if you want your resolution to be 2048 by 2048, you just come over here, click either new or resize. And now you can see the pixels are much more granular. Another quick note is that whichever project size you've got set up, when you import a drawable mesh, it will be rescaled to that size when you import it. So if you import it at a low resolution and then you change the resolution to be a higher resolution like I just did, you'll see it gets scaled up and it doesn't look as pretty as it would if you had imported it at the higher resolution. If you import as a reference mesh or as a reference object, the materials will keep their original resolution, so they don't get changed. Does that answer your question?
So I have a silly question about the tools themselves.
Yep.
A couple of times where I've jumped in, I've ended up creating duplicates of the tools, and I couldn't figure out how to get rid of them. So like 3 paint cans or something like that.
Right, that's a good question. The way you create duplicates of the tools is by pressing the B button. Well, that didn't work. That broke something.
You get a shoebox.
Well, I'm not sure what's going on there, so apologize. Usually the way you make duplicates of tools is by pressing the B button, and there's not really a good way to get rid of them, the duplicates, right now, unfortunately. Working on it. I think if you do let's see, if you do the delete tool, no, the delete tool does not delete clones. Yeah, sorry, no good way to get rid of them at the moment. You can turn them off by clicking on them.
I just got myself into a position on the Quest where all of a sudden I was losing frames because I had too many objects.
Yeah,
I was duplicating things for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, again, the B button duplicates things in general, so you can duplicate shapes and stuff. Shapes and meshes and everything you can get rid of pretty easy by just using the X button. Sometimes you got to use 2 hands to really get it. But tools, no such luck at the moment. I'm working on it. Oh, here you go. Here's the button. I already have something for it. Let's see. Delete. There you go. Just click it. Delete. So in the tool, so if you go to the tool shelf and you click on the pencils and you go over here to the trash can, that'll delete the most recently grabbed tool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions about importing, especially importing on PC? Real quick. If not, I am going to hand things over to Yinch to talk about importing on mobile VR and Quest especially, and I will get my VARTISTE scene all reset. So without further ado, Yinch, if you're ready, go ahead and take over here.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Zach, for asking me along to do this presentation. I'm really I love VARTISTE, and I've discovered that it solves a whole bunch of problems for me. I love working on Quest, and I also love working on. I love tools that let us work completely in browser, because I'm a huge fan of WebXR, and this is like one of the best examples of WebXR tools. I'm going to start by. I prepared some slides before I go into the session itself, and so VARTISTE on Quest 2 very quickly. Why should we use a Quest 2 when if you've got a PC? I have both PCVR and Quest. And the pros of the Quest 2 are it's highly portable, there's no tether, and it's sort of cheap. You don't need a gaming PC to run it. And the cons are it's less powerful than a PC. It's got an awkward file system because WebXR doesn't have like a file dialog pop up like naturally, and typing can be slow, and those are the cons. So when working with VARTISTE, I have this the issue. The main areas of storage are the Quest device storage and the web storage. So these are the ways I've been getting my models imported and exported out of VARTISTE to use on my PC built projects. And sorry, the next diagram is going to be a bit scary, but it's the whole picture, so you can see it all here. So you can see that VARTISTE is on the Quest, and it has access to the Quest device storage, and also the thing that I use, and this is my magic bullet for getting things done, is that I use Discord as my bridge between PC and Quest. So I have the Discord open in a tab on my web browser in the Quest, and I also have the Discord desktop app running on my PC, and things that I put into a message on my PC appear as links on my Quest web tab. And so the first thing I would do this like all at once, but I'll probably have to do it in little pieces. So the thing that Zach has just demonstrated for PC, the equivalent on the Quest is slightly less obvious because you don't have a file dialog, but this is the pathway that I've been using. I have a model on a desktop. I upload it. I upload it as an attachment to a message, which puts into web storage, and then I look at my Discord thread in the Quest web tab browser, and I can either sometimes I can use the URL from there directly in VARTISTE, which is really convenient, and sometimes I have to download it into the Quest device storage and then load it from the Quest device storage. And I put a little red arrow here because that's like the one of the slightly unexpected sort of like non-obvious bits of UI that has to be handled. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the actual demo. Any questions at this point yet before I go in? Is it all right? On the Mac, I use the Android file transfer, utility transfer file. Yes, there are ways to directly transfer into the Quest file system as well, through SideQuest on the PC, for instance. You can also get onto the Quest device storage that way. Okay, let's start casting. Okay, you're seeing that? Okay, fantastic. So this is VARTISTE on the Quest. It looks the same except you're on the Quest, and this is standalone. So here we are inside VARTISTE. Everything looks the same and similar. So in terms of import, one of the examples is there's a model that I uploaded earlier into Discord, and the way I get it into here is, so I go to my Discord tab, I've made a link for it, and you can see that here I say a PC source model uploaded to Discord. If I click on this, I copy link, and this is a model that I made in Blender, or in fact my son made in Blender. And from here, you can do project, load, go to edit URL to open. And this is the paste button here. And you click OK, and that will put it into the text box for you. It's really wide. And you click load URL. And in a little while, 1 second. In a little while. maybe it's dried out. I tested it would load a skier if it was all running. But basically, this is a model that I uploaded. Oh, maybe it's maybe. Do Discord attachments expire? Do they time out? I can upload it again, I guess. Yeah, I can upload it again. Anyway, do people think it times out?
It's a brilliant idea, though.
Yeah. So this. Let me. I wonder why this. So I did test this before, and that it did come in. I shared a picture. I wonder whether it does time out. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's so volatile. Give me a second. Let me drop out of here. And another example I have, if we can go back to this page, is the other way to source images is actually from third-party sources. Zach has already done really good Sketchfab integration, but just today I found out that it is possible to also directly import Ready Player Me avatars. So this is the Ready Player Me link. Copy link. Oh, geez, I better refresh this. I can remember to upsize the texture before I do the import, like Zach was saying earlier. 1 second, VARTISTE. Go in here. Change the size to, let's say, this new composition. Put that there, shrink it down a little bit. Go to open. URL. Paste. So that's the Ready Player Me URL. Click enter. Click open. And there we are.
Nice.
There's that. So here is the Ready Player Me avatar, which I think this is great that we can do this. So this is entirely it's all done entirely through cloud. I built the avatar in a browser using Ready Player Me. It gave me a GLB URL which I pasted in, and all the nice stuff that you can do with this fantastic tool you can do here. So for instance, we can go here. So in terms of differences, one of the things that is different is because of the slightly weaker GPU. The brush sizing that lets us change lets us visualize how big the brush is going to be on a texture is not shown by default. You can see that where the laser is intersecting is just like where it intersects. But if you toggle the UI off, then it shows. So the same things apply left and right. Let me get a brush up. Sorry, I've got to pick up a brush. The tool I like is this one. I like this one. Close that off. Close that again. So with this tool, I can. There we are. So I can repaint the jacket. Or I think you shrink it down. There we go. Nice. Anyway, I'm not here to demonstrate my art skills. I'm here to demonstrate import, but just showing that that it is possible to import GLBs directly from a URL. I'm not sure whether the Discord URL didn't work. It might have timed out. I should upload a later one. But if you have a GLB URL and you have your own web browser, so the other way you can use it is to source it from your own web browser. So you can either use Sketchfab, which is already built in, Ready Player Me, which I just demonstrated, or if you have a GLB file somewhere on your own web browser, then you can use that. You can paste the URL in, and if you set the cause permission correctly. Okay, back to you, Zach.
All right, thanks so much. That was really brilliant. That's a great idea using the Discord URL. That's a stroke of genius. Good to know the Ready Player Me direct link works as well. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think we saw a few questions that came up here. Let's see. Sage asked what size to use. For me on desktop, it kind of depends on what I'm going for. Usually if I'm making something that I'm going to export to another another program, I'll go for 2048 by 2048. And that seems to be a good trade-off between resolution and file size and my headset not crashing. Yinch, do you have experience with sizes that work well on the Quest?
I've been using a lot of 1024 by 1024. That's partly because the projects I was working on has lots of objects, so trying to preserve the texture space a little bit. It absolutely can manage 2K by 2K if there aren't that many objects. The total texture pool is so finite, so it copes. I've seen it cope fine with 2K by 2K. And I've worked with 1K by 1K just because of the destination deployment at the end. So yeah, 2K should be fine if there aren't too many objects, and 1K if there's slightly more objects.
And then I saw another question about Spoke URLs from the Mozilla Spoke. That's a good question. I've heard so many issues in the Hubs Discord group that I'm wary of saying whether it'll work or not. I don't know what the cores setup is. The issues were related to cores. Spoke is a great tool. I love it. But I don't know what the core setup is for files on there. I don't know, Matt, if you know offhand. Awesome.
I don't offhand. Yeah, it'd be a good thing to test though.
Sage says you can grab direct URLs to the GLB files from Spoke. That is awesome. So that is a great way to get files into VARTISTE then. Yeah, again, Spoke is a great tool. Right-click link, so you can copy files in from Spoke. Awesome. Great to know. I'm learning a lot.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
How about raw GitHub links? Has anyone tried that with VARTISTE?
Haven't tried that. Nope. All right. I think any more questions on importing before we move on? Yeah, the big thing about importing not working with GLBs, even if you can get to the URL, if the cores, the cross-origin, whatever, isn't set up to allow VARTISTE to access it, then it can't, unless you compile your own version of Chrome, which I've just started doing myself lately, so maybe there will be a VARTISTE app that can get around that someday, but no promises. Anyway, so next topic, kind of getting back to what we talked about at the beginning, was UV unwrapping. So I'll talk about some of the UV tools in VARTISTE. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, import use this ukulele. All right, I just imported this ukulele from Polyhaven. I'm going to get rid of all of the different maps. So Polyhaven gives really nice UV maps in general. They do great work, excellent models, but let's pretend that for some reason they hadn't, and you wanted to unwrap this ukulele using the tools built into VARTISTE. The tools that I have available at the moment are here in this Mesh Tools section. On the first row here are these UV shape unwrapping tools. There are different shapes that you have, and these shapes will provide a kind of a projection for where the UVs should go. This is kind of a unique method for doing UV unwrapping with these shapes that I've tried to make easy to use in VR and make sense. although it gives mixed results. So what you can do is you can click on one of these add shapes. So let's say a sphere, and it gives you this sphere. You can pick it up, grab it, resize it. You can use these axes to get the... There, you can squish it a little bit. So what you'll want to do is make sure that your model is covered by these shapes, depending on the kind of unwrapping that you want. I'm just going to put a bunch of shapes here to demonstrate. Oops, that didn't work. So here's a bunch of shapes. And then you click Unwrap, and that performs the unwrapping, which you wouldn't know by looking at it because there's nothing in the textures right now except just blank. But you can click Draw UV Lines, and it shows you here's where it unwrapped the UVs. You can see it just traces all of the different edges on the mesh. If you don't like it, you can clear the layer and then move the shapes around a little bit. Do it again, and now you've got a slightly different mapping. So I'm going to come back to Hubs for a second and talk about what's going on with these tools. So let me find... All right. So if you come back over here, this model is demonstrating what happens with a UV cube or UV bounding box. Basically what happens is each side of the cube or the box gets its own area on the UV map. So each face of the box gets its own area. Then each different vertex in the model gets mapped to a face depending on its normal direction. So the model encodes which way each vertex is pointing, and then based on which way it's pointing, we map it to a specific face. Then we project that vertex onto that face. So we see this particular vertex represented by this black line gets mapped to the front face, and based on its location in space, it gets located at this point on the front face. That gets turned into a point on that face's location in the in UV space, and finally ends up here. And now we have a position for the UV map for that vertex. So the cube does that for all of the points on the mesh inside of the cube. The other shapes, circle, sphere, are similar, except instead of using this face projection, it uses basically just spherical projection or cylindrical projection for each vertex inside of the shape. This is all a little technical. Basically, practically speaking, these are not super great ways to these are not super great ways to unwrap your mesh ultimately if you're trying to do something high quality, for a few reasons. If you notice over here, this guy's feet, you can see the inside of his right leg and the outside of his left leg both point in the same direction. And so the spaces, the vertices that are in the same spot relative to this right face will both end up on the same spot on the face, which means that they'll have the same place in the UV map, which means that whatever you draw here on your canvas or your material will show up in the same spot on both legs. So overlapping UVs are not great because you can't paint to the positions individually. Again, it depends on what you're going for, the level of detail you need. But that's one of the big pitfalls with this approach. So that's kind of the theory behind these tools. Back to the practice. Yeah, it's light baking needs to use UV maps, and for the same kind of thing, you don't want overlaps because you can't. It means that there's two places on your model that are specified as the same location on your texture. And for some things that's fine. For other things like light baking, that kind of ruins the effect. For VARTISTE, if you have two places like that, you could use two different shapes. So like you could put half of the ukulele in one shape and half in the other, and it will put it onto different spots. So each different shape, let's clear that. Each different shape gets its own space on the canvas. You cannot use multiple UV maps in VARTISTE, unfortunately. It's the idea behind this is kind of a general purpose 3D editor for bringing into a variety of other tools. Most tools, 3JS hubs, really only support one UV map in general. If you're trying to do more than that, then you're doing something more specialized. On the other hand, VARTISTE is open source, and you're welcome to hack it and put in your own handling, or send in a merge request for handling secondary UVs if you can figure out a good way to do it. All right, so these are the UV unwrapped shapes. Another way to visualize the UV maps is if you go over here to advanced drawing functions, you can apply the show UV effect. So in here, effects, apply effects, show UV, and you can see on the canvas you've got this nice smooth gradient because the canvas has its own UV map, just 0, 0 in the upper left, 1, 0, 1, 1, and 0, 1. It's a nice, easy rectangle to unwrap. Then you can come back over here and see the UV map and see where things correspond to. And other programs use a checker effect for this. Yeah, that's a bummer. The GitHub does not allow cores accessed from VARTISTE. Bummer. But yeah, so some applications use a checkered board pattern. I've got this nice smooth color, but it shows you what's going on here with the UV map. Let's see. So back to the shapes, you can clear the shapes that you've already got and start over if you want. Honestly, one of the easiest ways to just get going is if you click Add Bounding Box and click Unwrap. That does a pretty good job. Most of the time, you'll want to be drawing the same things on the same faces, same pointing faces anyway. So you can see this bounding box works pretty well on the ukulele. If you go inside of the ukulele, you'll see the top and the inside share texture space, but in most cases you can't even see that anyway. So if I'm going for something quick and easy, I'll use a bounding box, unwrap. In fact, if you import something to VARTISTE without UV maps, it will just do this for you automatically. If I was really concerned about the inside being different, what I would do is add a bounding box for the bottom. Thanks for coming, Michael. Sorry to see you go. Have a great day. But yeah, so I'd add a UV bounding box here for the bottom, and then another bounding box for the top. Unwrap. Oops, that didn't quite work. Try again till it does work. There we go. So now you can see by these different colors, the top is yellow, the bottom is green, and that means that they're not sharing texture space anymore. Now I can draw to the top of the ukulele independently of the bottom of the ukulele. So practically, this is about as far as I go with these unwrapping tools in VARTISTE. It's good for doing stuff quick and easy. Doing this by hand in Blender is kind of a whole process. So if you can get away with just doing this, go for it. Again, you can see this does a pretty good job. If for a lot of what I care about, applying quick materials, it's going to look pretty good. So if I come back over here and just fill the whole thing with this wood material, so you can get to the fill from over here, see it does a pretty decent job. Or if I want to fill it with a rock, it does a pretty decent job. And then I could even go in here and paint some of it separately. So if I wanted the inside to be separate over here, I can go ahead and do that. Can you rotate the UVs to change the wood grain direction? Good question. The answer is yes. There's a few different ways. I'm getting a messed up metal in this map here, so let me fill it with metal, and now if I fill it with wood, it goes back. Okay. Yeah, there's a few different ways you can do that. If you want to do it from the UV level, you can add your UV box, rotate the box, and grab these handles to resize it like this, and unwrap, and now the wood direction changes just like that. So that rotates the UVs themselves. What I usually do is you can also click here on rotate on the texture, and now the texture rotates. And now if you fill it, now the texture is rotated relative to the UVs. You can rotate it again and flip it over. You can also increase the repeat. So that's often easier than, oops, something got messed up with the map there. That's often easier than messing with the UVs. You can also click this Edit Mesh UV buttons. I'm probably going to regret it. Actually, what I'm going to do is for higher polygon meshes or even medium polygon meshes right now, the vertices and editing the UVs is not very efficient. I've got a lot of opportunities for optimizations that I'll get to someday. So what you can do is you can grab this tool here, the Vertex Editing Filter tool, put it on the part of the UV that you want, click it so it's green, or put it on part of the mesh that you want, click it so it's green, and now if you go over here to click Edit Mesh UVs, you can see you've got the overlay showing where they are on the model. I'm going to grab my Vertex handle grabber. Now I can go in here to the canvas, shows the points, the UV points, and let me show the mesh here. Let's see, this is the back, so I'll edit the front, and now I can move. Hope you can all see that. I can move the UV map around just like that, resize it. So that's also a way you can, you could just take it all, rotate it. That's also a way you could rotate UVs. Now you've got this kind of wavy effect. Let's see. Well, now the handles are stuck in place. There's another bug. Cool. It's another quick point about VARTISTE. This is actively in development. It's a open source spare time project. I work on it for fun. I don't get paid to do it, and I don't take payment or financial contributions. So it breaks sometimes. Let me know, and I'll probably fix it pretty quick. Oh, it crashed here. Let's see. There. Should be visible again. Yeah, so VARTISTE crashes. It's kind of a fact of life. Save often, and you can usually recover. There's lots of options for recovering. If you do run into a crash, you'll get that crash window, which you just saw. I'd love it if you report the crash on the Discord so I can fix it. But that's kind of a fact of life. Let's see, there were a few other topics. I know it's getting kind of long here already. So for those of you who are still around, how are you feeling? Do you want to keep going? Do you want to hear about the 3D tools? Do you want to hear about export? Do you want to hear about all of it? Anybody? 3D and export? All right. Cool. So I am going to refresh my page here, so bear with me. That's first thing to do if something breaks with VARTISTE is save what you can, download, export, whatever you got to do to save your stuff, and refresh, and then it's all good and clean right from the start. Set up my spectator view with this quick spectator setup, and I'll bring you all into VARTISTE so I can see you. Enter VR. Okay. Hey, thanks for coming, Rebecca. Good to have you here. Okay, so some of the 3D creation tools. These are all pretty new, but they're pretty cool. So in tools over here in this primitive shapes constructs is where all the 3D creation tools live. You've got your shape wands over here and your shapes over here. The shapes are cool. You just grab them and place them where you want them. And then you've got more. You can change the colors. If you grab them and press B, you can clone them. So let's see, toggle the UI off. And just like that. So you can build up complex shapes pretty quickly. I've even got this little guy here to get you started. This is from Kenny NL. He's got a whole bunch of CC0 assets. So I've imported his base mesh, which is pretty handy. So these are the shapes. Again, we went over shapes a little bit, so you can edit the vertices. They'll take on the color that you're drawing with. If you go over here to material packs, it takes a little while to load, especially while I'm streaming, but you can select draw with material, and now the shapes take on the material from the material pack. 3D wands are basically another way of creating these shapes. They also take on whatever material you're drawing with. However, they also take on the brush. So if I go over here and I select like one of these bottom row brushes, these stretch brushes, and draw with this star brush, it'll take on the material, the color, and it will stretch it. So if I do red, it'll be red. You can create some really cool effects with this. Often maybe this isn't quite what you're after. Maybe you're just looking to draw with a solid gold brush. Easy way to do that is click Solidify Wand Shapes and choose white. And now you've got a solid 3D shape that you're drawing with based on the tool. You can create all sorts of cool things with this. The size of the wand determines the size of the thing. It's also sensitive to the trigger pressure, so you can change the pressure. If you grab it, press B, you can also get point-to-point drawing, just like that. So that's the drawing wands. We've got a few different ones here. You can create your own wands by clicking, let's see, where is it? One of these buttons does it. Add to shape. I guess you can't do it automatically, so what you can do is you can draw a shape here on your canvas. So on your active layer, let's go with, I don't even know what this is, just some weird shape. Okay, and then you can do layer outline to wand shape, and I need to have actually an active layer with a shape. So so you can see, since I was drawing with a material, the active layer was empty, so I activate this layer with the outline, and layer outline to wand shape, and now I've got my own wand with that shape that I just drew, which is not cooperating. Solidify. There we go. So now I've got some. You can easily create your own shapes, your own 3D wands. There's a lot. You can make these point to point as well. There's a lot you can do with these wands. A ton of creative potential, I think. So then, usually, once you've got all this mess, you want some way to organize it. So what you do is you come over here to miscellaneous tools. You move your layers out of the way. You've got two options. You've got the multi-grabber, which can just grab a whole bunch of stuff. So grab a bunch of stuff. It doesn't do anything to it. It just lets you grab it and move it. You can press B to duplicate it while you're grabbing it. So pretty handy. You can scale it by scaling the grabber. Or what you can do is your grouping tool. So you can come over here, select a whole bunch of this stuff, grab it, press the trigger, and now it converts a whole bunch of stuff to a single reference object. Remember, we were talking about shapes versus reference objects. And easy way to clean that up is just close it, and now it's all gone. Nice and easy. So I'm going to do that with some of this junk because it's in the way. Actually, before I do that, handy way to navigate is if you come back here to your quick menu, at the bottom you've got two grabbers. You can grab the scene, move that around, or you can grab the UI and move all that around. So quick and easy way to move lots of stuff. So those are the built-in shapes wands. Showed you how to create your own wands from from drawing the outline. Showed you how to group them. I just have been putting in and working on some cool 3D shape drawing tools. So I'm going to use this import as reference, and I am going to import a vase shape from Polyhaven. Just dragging and dropping like I showed you earlier. So let's see, ceramic vase. Alright, you can see I got the vase. It's a reference object. What I'm going to do is deconstruct it to a shape. So now it's a shape. I could edit the vertices and stuff like that. And I'm going to create a height stretch wand. So now I can move the original one. And now I've got this wand. And it can draw. Oops, that's not a very good demo. Let me get this gold back. Now it can draw with this 3D shape. And it's not a great demo as I thought. But now I can create my own vase just based on that template. Can rearrange this a little bit. Maybe that's better. So you can see you can get different vase shapes. Let's see. I'm going to bring in, let's see, the avocado. The avocado worked surprisingly well as a brush earlier. So let's see. So you can create a stretch wand by height. There we go. So now you can get this weird kind of, it's an avocado shape, but you can stretch it and make, I don't know, all sorts of interesting stuff. Maybe horns for a monster or whatever you want. You can also do the point to point with a shape from a 3D object, just like that. You can, again, it takes whatever material you're using. If these default 6 materials aren't enough for you, you can load more material packs. You can either load some of the built-in ones that I've got. I'll load more basics here. Or to add your own material, while you've got this material window open, you can drag and drop either a zip file from Polyhaven or a set of images. So I'll show you that real fast here. Let's see. Go to Alright, should be showing the desktop. Yeah, so here are a bunch of textures that I've downloaded from CC0 Textures. I think it's called Ambient CG right now. Great resource, highly recommend it. Let's go find a better one. Let's see. So here's a fabric texture. You can see it's got the color image, the displacement, which doesn't actually work in VARTISTE right now, the normal image, and the roughness image. So I've got VARTISTE up, and I'll just select these images and drag and drop them, and you can see it creates a new material pack for me right there. Pretty handy. So now I'll go back to VARTISTE, and I can go ahead and use that texture, and oops, now I've got a fabric avocado in case you ever need to make a fabric avocado in one of your 3D models. You can create these stretch wands either vertically or horizontally. So here's this built-in guy again. Here's the horizontal stretch. You can see you can make them hug things. Here's the vertical one. You can make them do back bends or backflips. So those are the tools. You can do all sorts of creepy effects or make all sorts of different shapes. Pretty quick and easy, I think. I think you can definitely get some interesting effects here if you really go for it. But yeah, so don't want to bore you too much just sitting here playing with all the things. Double check on the chat. Alright, so I'll get my grouper again and just get rid of them all. Yeah, thank you for sharing the link there. Okay. So this has been kind of a real quick overview run through of the VARTISTE 3D creation tools. Is there anything that anybody is interested in particular here? Anything you want explanation of, or more detail, or better example?
So are there any features on like the shapes, such as like the cube there? Are there any kind of like basic 3D modeling features like subdividing it or extruding or things like that?
Not too many. You can edit the vertices.
Okay.
So all the shapes, you can go in here and edit the vertices. You can duplicate it. You can convert the shapes to a drawable mesh. So if I convert shapes to a drawable mesh, now it becomes something I can draw on, which I can't because I'm not on the right layer right now, but oops, hide everything. So oops, it's fill brush. So now it's a drawable mesh like we were dealing with before. And now I have access to the mesh tools here. So these mesh tools, oh, I forgot the 3D cutout. I'll show you. So you can subdivide. 50-50 chance it works. Sometimes if the vertices aren't connected, it just gives you garbage. There's simplified tools. Oh, I should have merged by distance first and then done that. You can bake your textures to vertex colors. That's kind of handy. Or you can create a layer from the vertex colors. You can control if it's double-sided or not. You also can control morph targets and create your own morph targets by editing the vertices. And that's kind of the extent of the traditional 3D modeling tools available right now.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, this was never intended to be a 3D modeler originally. I've just kind of...
Yeah, no, I've seen you just kind of add all this stuff.
Yeah.
Just over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so there will probably be more, but the last tool that I forgot to mention for creating 3D things is cutting out to shape. So if you click the cut out to shape button, and then you go back over here and draw on the canvas, you can just kind of draw, and it creates a shape out of the canvas. Just cuts it right out and creates a shape. And then it's a shape, so you can do all the same stuff, like convert it to a stretch wand. Oh, maybe that doesn't work.
So I can draw a little cat face and then turn it into a stretch wand and draw with cats.
Exactly.
Just to say also, the Zach manually drew the outline, but there actually is a trace function that it will find the edge of the pixels for you and just like cut the outermost shape. So you don't even have to do the very detailed cutting yourself. It can trace it for you.
Yeah, that's cool. This button right here, cut shape from layer outline. See, there we go. See, my layer, current layer is this outline, and now I've got this outline as a shape. And you can duplicate it easily. And yeah, so use these as columns in a, if you were building a some kind of environment or something like that. Now you've got these cool little columns that you can just duplicate, place where you want. You can use this as like fire. And here is some kind of ghost who inhabits this weird place. There you go, an instant environment. Which will bring us into the next portion, which is export. In just a second, just to see if anybody has any more questions about 3D creation, shapes, drawing in 3D. I guess I forgot, one more thing I forgot to mention is up at the top is this 3D line tool. Does basically the same thing, except it's just flat, which is helpful for if you want to draw, like, I don't know, pick these dots here, and you can draw with that in 3D. The size of the brush on the canvas affects how it gets drawn into 3D, so you can see I changed the effect by scaling the brush. So that's something to keep in mind. So all sorts of cool effects. Unfortunately, you got to be a little careful with the transparency here, just due to the way that Three.js renders transparency. You get a lot of blinking effects. I don't have a good workaround or a good suggestion yet, except just be careful about where things are positioned and try to avoid it. All right, so that is 3D drawing and 3D creation with VARTISTE. Any other questions about this or 3D stuff in VARTISTE? No? Okay, cool. So that brings us to the next topic. Actually, as a little segue, I'm going to just briefly mention the outline tool. So it's still a pretty experimental feature, but one of the options here on these shapes is this scene organizer. This gives you a kind of a control panel for that particular thing. You can see you've got a little grabber here that lets you move that thing specifically. You can toggle the visibility. You can delete it, duplicate it, show the origin. You can put constraints on so that you can't move it freely anymore. It's kind of all sorts of interesting, useful things. And so this is also how you access the 3D animation. So there's this Puppeteer button, which is a great way to do animation in 3D. Click Puppeteer, click play, and now grab your thing, and it will record what you did. Ideally, you do it when it's not, when you're not streaming with a whole bunch of stuff in the way, because it will slow things down. But this is how you add. You can also just do traditional keyframes. You've got a timeline down at the bottom. It would be whatever, basically whatever VARTISTE can handle. So it will be at maximum. If you go down to the 2D animation thing, you've got your frame rate over here, frames per second. This controls the global frame rate, and then the keyframing, the live keyframing, depends on what VARTISTE can handle, which apparently is not too much while I'm streaming and recording and having a bunch of stuff in the scenes. You can also insert keyframes, and then it will interpolate between them. It will loop if you click loop. So that's where the 3D animation stuff lies. This is just recently added, so it will probably change, get updated. Yeah, you can see the play pause is not doing so well right now because of however much is in here. Yeah, exactly. The snowball fight in the back there, that was all just, I just grabbed it, moved it around with my hands, and did the puppeteering. There's a video on Twitter showing how I did it. Works a lot better when you don't have a whole ton of stuff cluttering up the VARTISTE workspace. So that's where the animation stuff lives. If you're interested, you can dig in. There will be more coming, I'm sure. But that is that. That brings us to the other big topic, which is export. You'll see in the scene organizer there's a actual export button here. If you want to export just a particular shape or just a particular reference object, that's a good, easy way to do it. It will export as a GLB file, and it happened so fast that it already downloaded. You also have your main way to export, which is from the project settings shelf. This export shelf, you click it, and you've got your export options. Export is different than save. You can click save, and it will download a VARTISTE project file. That's a big JSON file with everything, all the shapes as shapes, reference objects as reference objects, the canvas as drawable canvas with all of the layers independent. If you are going to keep working on what you're working on, definitely save it as a VARTISTE project file. If you want to export it into a way that can be used in other programs, you go over here to your export shelf, and this lets you export either as a 2D canvas or as a 3D shape. Up at the top, you've got your export options, JPEG compression or smart compression. I recommend doing the smart compression for now. Draco compression, if you want to export it with a little extra compression and the tool that you're using can handle Draco compression, you can try the Draco compression option. Doesn't always work 100% reliably, so buyer beware. Center on export centers what you're doing so that you've got it centered when you import it to the tool. Prune empty nodes is a little extra cleanup that I just added. Usually works. Down here you can choose what to include in the 3D export. Maybe you do want the canvas included, maybe you don't. You can toggle it on and off. Same for the drawable mesh, shapes, reference objects, reference images. You can toggle all of those on and off. So pretty much you choose what you want to include. The canvas is part of the scene here, so I want to include it this time. And then you go over down to here and you click Export File, GLB file. I'm actually going to switch to showing, actually I think you can see it already. Yeah, you can see the download toolbar at the bottom. When you click Export, it will sometimes freeze for a little while. But there you go. It exports as a GLB file, which gets downloaded usually to your browser's default download location. For me, that's just in the Downloads folder on Windows. For Quest, it's in the Downloads folder on the Quest. I can go over here to the Don McCurdy GLTF viewer and open it up. And there is the thing we just built. Can go over to, actually, let's see how big it is before I try and import it to Hubs. It's 1 megabyte, so should be doable. So I'm going to just drag and drop that into Hubs, and let's see what happens. And there it is. Something crashed. Okay, so there it is. The thing I just created. It's that easy to make things in VR and bring them right into Hubs. Same deal for Spoke. You just bring it into, drag and drop it from VARTISTE into Spoke, and there it is. So I think everybody here is mostly using GLTF files anyway, so that's going to be pretty easy for you. You can bring it into Blender. Let's see, I can do that real fast. Just use the Blender GLTF importer. Again, it's in Downloads. Here it is. Oops. And there it is. If you want to create a nice fancy scene, see, yeah, you've even got the Hubs window as a reference. But there it is. There's a zillion nodes because they're all different shapes and things. So that is basics of exporting. Let's see. Those are the options. It's pretty much all there is to it, really. I've gotten it to the point where it usually works just about right. Although, if it doesn't work just about right for you, please let me know. Just drop a message in the Discord and let me know what's going on, and I will definitely try to fix it. Any questions about what I went over just now? Anything about exporting on PC.
Just one question about exporting.
Yeah.
If you had, say, 3 or 4 different objects in a scene and exported them as a GLB file, would they be like addressable in something else that you imported them in? Like, obviously in Blender you can do whatever you want, but if you were to import them into an A-frame scene or a Babylon.js scene, would you be able to get each part of the mesh separately to do something with?
Yes, technically yes. So if you for bringing it into Blender is an easy way to show what's going on. So like you can see, I'm clicking on the different mesh. It's a separate mesh object. So in 3JS, if you import it, it'll be a separate mesh from, say, this mesh and this mesh. You can see the names are mesh 11, mesh 94, node 122, mesh 12, which is not super helpful for addressing them. At some point, I hope to be able to add naming them to the scene inspector, but it's not there yet. So the answer is yes, but not easily.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, as long as they're all unique, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Like trying to name them in VR would probably be a nightmare.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they are unique. You can actually see the hierarchy. There's a little bit of hierarchy for what you can do is if you go to the scene inspector, let's move all this UI a little bit, and get rid of the scene. Okay, so the scene inspector, it starts with the root. This is what gets exported at the root level. If you export from the main thing, you can click Load Children, and you can see there's the shape root that has all the shapes in it. I shouldn't have clicked that because it's going to be really big right now. Yeah, so you can see all the different shapes.
Seeing the Blender screen at the moment, just to let you know.
Right. Thank you. So what I did was I went in here to Experiments, and then I clicked on the Scene Inspector, and that gave me this canvas root. I clicked Load Children, and it loaded these other nodes, so the shape root, and then I perhaps foolishly clicked Load Children on the shape root, which shows me all of the individual shapes. And this is essentially the structure that gets exported if you export to GLTF and import to like 3JS or Blender or something like that. I'm just going to close that. But then the references.
You want to show them that you can change the parent relationship. You can move a child to be parented to something else with the link.
Right. That's a good point. So if you want to do your own organization before you export, you can change the parent-child relationship. Like if I want to move this mesh out of this reference object and into this other entity, I can click and I can grab with the grab trigger this output node or this parent node and drag it to this connector here. And now that changes the relationship. So now you can see, I guess, this mesh is the this Hubs reference window, and I can reparent it to the let's see, is it canvas? So I can reparent it to the canvas. Let's see if I can grab right. And now when I move the canvas, the reference window moves. So this lets you basically just dive right into the 3JS scene graph. It's really powerful, but once you start messing with things, it's not guaranteed that it will work anymore. So FYI, use at your own risk. But you can do it, and it can be handy sometimes. So especially if you're trying to do detailed GLTF exports. Another note is that when you import as a reference, the reference object will preserve the hierarchy. So if you have set up a detailed hierarchy, export it as a GLTF file, and then re-import it as a reference to put into another scene, your hierarchy will be preserved, which can be helpful for addressing things. The one last note about export in general, when you're drawing with shapes, you have this option to share materials across shapes. if you do click it, then each material that has this, or each shape that has the same material, so like these shapes all have the same color and everything, they'll share a material. When you uncheck it, new ones get new materials. This can be really helpful to share materials if you're planning to export to Blender and then modify the materials in Blender. If you make them drawable, however, then they'll be all sharing the same material, which makes them share the same texture space, which makes drawing to them much harder, because you'll just draw to the same spot on each. So FYI, something to play with if you run into trouble there. So that's exporting on PC. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jens to talk about exporting on Quest. So
Yeah,
Jens,
great, thanks, Zach. Just to say again, like everybody else here, the functionality that you've put into VARTISTE is just incredible. There have been many moments when I've looked at it and said, "Oh, maybe I'll never have to use Blender again," and that makes me happy.
yeah, not yet, but
Anyway.
maybe someday.
1 second. Okay, let me get the correct. There we are. Here. Okay. So the export path is basically for Quest is basically the reverse of the import path. You use VARTISTE to save out to the Quest device storage. It goes into the download folder, like Zach was mentioning, and then I used my Discord Quest, the web tab in Discord, to like push it up into storage, and I download it into Windows. So I will do that now. Also, earlier when I was trying to import the model using Discord link GLB, it can't do it because of the same cause problem, but there is a way to do it, which is to download it into the Quest device storage, and then load it in from there. But there's a weird thing that happens in VARTISTE, which is unavoidable, which is when you say load from a folder, nothing happens in the immersive environment, and you have to right menu your way back out to the 2D view, and then the file dialog will be there. And I'll demonstrate that now. Okay, casting. Hopefully this will work. All right. Okay. There we are. Okay, we're in here. Let me close this up. Clear, clear, clear. What's this menu here? Back up here. Start from scratch. So you'll see here that I uploaded. I put a GLB file into as attachment into my message thread here, which is, and if I click it, it downloads it. So it's in the download folder. Then for VARTISTE, I will go into here, see the download's complete. VARTISTE, go in here, open, let's put the size up a little bit there, go to load, and instead of the URL load, it's actually this load the file by drag and dropping it here. We can't drag and drop in Quest, but we can click this button, and at this point, nothing seems to happen. So at this here, you press the menu button on your left controller. You come back out here, and the file dialog's waiting for us. You won't see it straight away because it's gone into the downloads area, and there's the file we just downloaded. And we select, and we go back into VARTISTE, and there's the object there's the GLB file that we just downloaded. This was these are sample files that I'm doing for a little experiment. And now to do the reverse of this is the export. So same thing, we go back here, we go to export, that's it there, a bunch of settings. I tend to use smart compression. Draco compression promises a lot, but like every piece of software I've tried to use, Draco has caused things to break. So I just leave it on smart compression. So there are a bunch of settings to do. I just leave it on default, and I do export GLB file. Click there, which produces a download behind here. and it's done. So if you go back to, close this and here, you go back to the 2D view, and you go to our Discord, and now we attach a file, upload a file, go to media, download. There's the file which is downloaded, and select and enter. And now from my desktop, I can download the GLB file. One thing that happens is that it adds a .txt extension to the end of the file name. If you rename it back to GLB, then it'll load just fine. And that is the end of the Quest export demo. Any questions? Anything people need to see?
Nice. That's super handy, super convenient.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop the thing here. Stop casting here. Great, I'm coming back into Hubs. And back to you, Zach.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. That's super handy. So at this point, I think that's all of the topics that I had been thinking about specifically covering. I think these were the topics that were voted on in the Discord. I know it's been kind of a long talk. Listening to me blabber. So I think we can call it a day. Take any questions if anybody has any questions or wants to see anything in particular demonstrated or anything. All right, thanks for coming. Have a great weekend as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the demo. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for
Great
coming.
education.
Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you, everybody. It was really helpful to just listen in and learn from the back.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. Yeah, as always, if you build anything cool, I'd love to see it. Share it on the Discord or on Twitter or wherever. Or if you need any help or are confused, again, find me on the Discord, the Twitter. Be happy to help folks get going with this.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That's cool.
Cool.
That was great, Zach. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for sharing it as well.
Great work, Zach. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. And again, if you ever trying to use it and there's any way I can help, just feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to have.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I live streamed it if that's okay. I'll pull it down if you want, but otherwise feel free to. Feel free to download it or use it for whatever might help you.
Yeah, that'd be super helpful. Would you mind sending me the link?
Of course.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for building this. This is such a cool tool. So I can't wait to continue to play with it.
Yeah, thanks for being interested. I think I'm hopeful that if I can iron out some of the edges, it could be really handy for like onboard folks, especially because it give them an easier way to build like nice looking Hubs compatible 3D models to set up scenes and stuff or props or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue it already is
Yeah.
It's very elegant.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'll DM you the link, and please let me know any way I can support.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zach. Enjoy your Saturday.
You too. Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, the file management on Oculus is kind of rough right now. I wonder. I was just playing with it. I made a quick GLB, and I was like, okay, how to get it into, if I wanted to just get it into the Hubs room right now, like how would I go about? And then it's like, okay, do I open the file manager or whatever? You know.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
I mean, I just tried to upload, and you've got to put it up on the URL somewhere and pull it down. So you've got to bounce it off the cloud, which is, I mean, you know, in some ways, an awkward way of doing it is still better than no way. So I'm kind of I'm sort of semi-grateful.
Oh yeah,
I wish it were easy. To be honest, when I started using VARTISTE, I wasn't. I ran, you know, I kept seeing these buttons that said things like drag and drop, and I thought, oh, you know, maybe I'm completely stuck. But in fact, there were these sort of unexpected fallbacks. There were ways of achieving stuff. You just had to like pick your way through the system, and it wasn't like immediately obvious. But but it's all there. Like there hasn't been a thing I just needed to do, which the WebXR couldn't do with a little bit of extra, you know, with one extra hop, basically you can basically get everywhere. And I love that it's just one of those things, because of the Quest, you just put on your headset, you just do a thing, you know, you go in and out. It's sort of like very it's really nice casual use pattern, which I really like. Yeah. Thanks for coming to the talk and sitting through all of that.
Oh yeah, this has been great. I've been like popping into the other browser and trying stuff as I get to listen to you and Zach, and it's really actually a really nice way to do it, because I can't really hang in VR in Hubs that long. Like it's like because of, you know, the like performance stuff, it's just like you know, it gets a little swimmy. But I mean, this has been really nice to be able to pop in, keep the, you know, listening to audio as I try things. So I think it worked really well.
Yeah, great job, Zach. I think that went really well. I think people were like engaged all the way through, and you showed amazing stuff. To be honest, this is stuff that I'm always jaw dropped when I see you add features. I wasn't quite counting all the features you added because I asked for, but I spotted the constraints. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the pace is unreal to me too. Yeah, I'm just like always like, okay, wow, Zach added another thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for being interested. I mean, one of my hopes for this project was that it would be useful to other people and make cool stuff with it. And I'm glad to see people were interested today. Thanks so much, Jens, for sharing all that. I learned a lot. So that was really cool.
It's great. I really believe in WebXR as a format, and I really believe that it poses a credible alternative to a bunch of other stuff, and your software demonstrates it like the best of all. You know, so I love that it exists. I hope the bit I contributed today helped people believe in its usefulness, but you have done absolutely all the heavy lifting on this. So I really appreciate this work, and I'm so glad that I'm so glad I didn't miss using this, because obviously it's been around a little while, but it's just one of those things where you think I'll get back to it, and then you never do, and then you eventually do, and you go, oh, I wasted the rest of my life. I should have done this. So I'm really glad people came to see it, and I hope the word gets out.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I've heard so many people say, "Oh yeah, I'll try this next weekend," and then either they never do, or they try it and they hate it. I'm not totally sure which, but I think this event was pretty helpful for things like that, and then try to figure out other ways to get folks like that engaged. But
I think, I mean, one of the, so it's because of the way you're sort of adding features, it's like so rapidly, your UI is sort of like, it's got weird tendrils in its hierarchy just because of the way things are added.
Yeah.
Which can make things harder to find. But to be honest, it's hard to find stuff in Blender as well. So you're in pretty good company.
Yeah, Blender's got the button soup thing going too. It's just kind of a,
it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, Zach, I might when I might like go through the UI one time. Whoever can, it'll be ages from now. I'm too busy, but I would love to go through and just sort of categorize the buttons which are under experimental, and you probably have some plans about putting them into where they actually go, because the experimental category is sort of, you kind of try to remember whether it's a new feature, an old feature, to look right down one set of systems or down the other set of systems. And so I think easing the navigation will win a lot of users because it's just so powerful. I think artists will really appreciate it because you're missing a tool like this. We completely are, and you're right there. So there's a couple of native things. Gravity Sketch is pretty good. I like Shapes XR as well, but they're not as powerful as your stuff actually.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah. I've experimented with a few prototype new UIs, but they've either been no better than the button soup, or so much harder to add features to that I'm never gonna bother with it. And so, I find still looking for a good trade-off.
No, sure, and I mean I completely I am also not am I astounded, just amazed by the feature richness of the tool, but the fact that you did it like in your spare time.
Yeah.
that's just unbelievable. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable as well. So I really appreciate the effort you've put into it. You've made an amazing thing, and I really hope that lots of people get to use it. And I'll continue to use it. I'll continue to find uses for it. I haven't used it as much as I wanted to, just because my job as a programmer, every time I do 3D modeling, people tell me to stop doing it. They say, get back to your job. I love it, but it's not really. I'll try to get my 3D modeling people to use it a little bit more, because they're all VR people. They all have Quest headsets. All of them also have PC VR as well. So thank you. I'm going to drop out now, and thank you so much for organizing this. Really good to see you again, Matt. And I'll catch you on the Discord later.
Thank you so much for coming. It was really great having you here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great rest of the
Thanks,
Saturday.
guys.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Take care.